History is not just stories, it's strategy. We're talking about the Titans, the Greek gods, the heroes of Greek mythology. They represent something greater than themselves. They represent power, wisdom, resilience, the ability to move mountains both literally and figuratively. Now, if we can take a moment here and stop and think about what they actually mean, what they actually represent, how these stories are not just myths, but instead we can see them as these mental models to elevate and lock in our performance. For instance, what if we could use the wisdom, push of Athena, the resilience of Prometheus, the discipline of Ares? The list can go on and on and on, and we're going to look at them here because the Greeks had a word, and it was pronesis, practical wisdom. And it's the ability to really act with the knowledge that we have, the foresight, the purpose, believing that mastery of the mind really does shape our destiny. So today, we are going to dive deep into some lessons that we can learn from the Greek mythology and how it can level up our game and apply to mental performance. Hey y'all, welcome to the Athlete's Health Deep Dive. My name is Gabe, and this is the weekly episode where we get a mental performance theme of the week, dive deep into its insights through some tips, tricks to remember it, tools to apply it. And the goal here is to bring you more value, the audience, the athletes, coaches, the leaders, the parents, anyone giving you a glimpse into some of these longer conversations around the mental performance topic. And then ultimately too, what some conversations in our coaching can look like. But each week we have a theme, and within that we dive deep into tips, tricks, and tools. Now these tips are just a broad kind of topic of it. The tricks are a way to remember, and the tools are how we can apply it to our game right away so we can level up our performance. And like I said, each week we do have a theme, and this week's theme is learning from history. Whoa, got to put that away. But it's Greek mythology and mental performance. Because if you have not followed for a little bit yet, we're TAH Titans because they represent something great. And the mythology is something that I'm always so intrigued in, and I keep trying to learn it more and more and more. And so today, I really wanted us to spin it into how it can help our performance, especially that mental side of performance, and why they are our mascot. And it's foreshadowing some stuff we have down the line, but we will get into that later. So without further ado, let's dive deep into some Greek mythology and mental performance and level up our game with 5 tips, tricks, and tools. Tip number 1 is know thyself. And this is the Oracle's challenge because this is a pretty cool concept. But first off, I want us to think about what is the foundation of every great athlete, coach, competitor, you name it. And it comes back to that self-awareness and having that be a key to mastery of the mental game. And this comes from the ancient Greeks inscribing know thyself on a temple. It was this temple of Apollo. And it really means self-awareness is the key to wisdom and success. And that success, that wisdom, being wise, brings that success is how I interpret it. Because we cannot improve if we do not understand. Yet, how many athletes train just constantly, endlessly, tirelessly, but then never really examine their mental state, their nutritional state, or any other sides of the game besides maybe just what they're doing at practice? And are they even actually examining that? Or are they just going through the reps? That's why this trick is the mirror of Delphi, because this was at Delphi. So we're going to be mirroring where it is at. If we want to grow, we have to reflect. And that's why we have this mirror. We can think like they're seeing the sign, know thyself. We're seeing that it's reflecting back to us. So these tools are going to include a pre-game check. And before every game, they're going to be super simple. We're going to add these, but we can ask ourselves, what kind of mindset am I in? What state am I in? Am I focused, locked in, or am I distracted? How am I feeling? And that's kind of just like the initial of what we can do. And then we can throw in all these other tips, tricks, and tools that we got through the mental gym, which is rebranding, by the way, but that's for a later date, and use to level up our game. And then post game, we can also write down one thing that we did well and one thing we need to improve, right? We're not doing anything crazy here, but we're just helping ourselves know thyself so we can level up our game as we move forward. And just for example, Kobe Bryant would famously review game film on repeat. Now, he wasn't just looking at the normal stuff that everyone looked at, though. He was also breaking down his reactions to plays, his emotions during different parts of the game, his decisions he made because of these instances, right? That's really this phronesis in actions. It's that practical wisdom through self-reflection. That's what phronesis is. It's that practical wisdom, and why we're going to be coming back to that phrase. But first and foremost, tip 1 is that self-awareness is the key to mastery. And we were using kind of the know thyself of that Oracle's challenge through kind of the Apollo, Delphi, and that temple there. See, I told you I'm a little more new to the Greek mythology. I love studying it, but some of it I just can't pronounce that well. Now, number 2, we're going to have this Titan mentality. We're going to have the strength, and that's obviously what we're building here with the Athlete's Health, but we are going to have that purpose behind it. And you can think about it like this. Sometimes we have people who have that raw power, but what happens to the difference of the people who just have the raw power and the people who have that purpose behind it, who can harness it towards that purpose of whatever it is? And that is why this tip is strength with control, because otherwise strength without control leads to destruction. And this comes from knowing that the Titans were immensely powerful, right? But the downfall came when they were kind of recklessly using that power, and then the Greek gods took them over, and Zeus came in there and took them over, yada, 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 all kept going. It shows us that mental toughness isn't just about being unbreakable. We have to adapt. If we think we are the epitome and we have the power, we have the immense power, it can be pulled away, just like it was pulled away from the Titans and transferred to the new gods. But we're going to have this trick of a Titan's restraint, because the strongest mind is not just the loudest. It's the one who knows when to actually act, when to go forth, and when to wait a little bit, when to step back and assess the situation. And that brings us to these tools of what we're actually going to be doing. We're going to first just get some breathing, and we're going to breathe before we react, right? Sometimes when we get hot-headed, we just kind of make those impulse plays. And this is different than making those impulse game time decision plays, right? When we need to, and we need to not think. But when those emotions are spiking, when we might be doing that quick foul, check in the player, whatever the case is, this is when we can take that quick breath, quick moment, and pair that with a quick thought before making the action and responding. And that helps us control this aggression, but we can put that in training with some aggression training, right? If we start practicing in certain spots or certain drills, games, whatever, when we are putting the pressure on ourselves, when we're making it difficult, we can start to practice controlling that aggression in those most aggressive times, right? It's stimulating those high pressure moments where we have to start focusing and making sure we can react. And I put this in a phrase of Michael Jordan, right? He would channel that intensity, right? If we think about him as the Titan, the god of basketball, the GOAT, whatever you want to call it, he would control and purposefully seek out when to strike, when to hold back, when to be the killer, when to use that immense power that he had by literally practicing and training with a chip on the shoulder, with the knack to get after someone, He would say someone called him a name, even though they never even called him a name, just to start to get his mind racing and thinking he needs to act. He needs to use that Titan power, but he also would use that Titan's restraint and use it when he needs it. And that's exactly what we can do. Thank you for tuning in to the Athlete's Health podcast. And I just wanted to share what we're all about. The Athlete's Health is an online mental gym helping athletes build confidence and resilience in both sports and life. Now, we've got something for everyone, whether it's the free newsletters, tips and tricks on them, or engaging social media content where we're broadcasting these episodes and sharing these actionable insights for you to take home and use right away. Athletes, coaches, parents, even teams, we're offering everything from these free resources to personalized coaching and monthly memberships in the gym. Plus, with partners who share our vision, we're creating multiple ways to check in and grow with us wherever you are. Now, if you have questions about the Athlete's Health or just want to chat about mental performance in life and just want to talk it up, reach out anytime. Now, together, we're building TAH Titans, those resilient, hardworking, and ready to conquer their goals people, athletes. Now, let's get back to this episode. Keep striving towards greatness. Number 3 is Athena's Edge. And this one's going to be fun because we're going to be looking at wisdom over instinct. And this comes over time. This comes as we prepare, as we level up. This comes to a very important question. When we are in that intense, important, high-pressure situation, what should we rely on? That just raw talent that someone has, or that decision-making, intrinsic, that drive that we distilled in ourselves, that we have created time and time again, which is why this tip is going to be phronesis, turning knowledge into action, right? It's not just about that raw talent, that raw instinct, that raw power. That raw instinct, that raw talent, that raw power is definitely needed. Once again, not knocking that. People who have it, couldn't get the better chance, right? But it comes into everything else how we're putting in there, looking at Athena, looking at the term phronesis, the wisdom from it. Because Athena was the god of wisdom, and she really did represent that phronesis, and that is the practical wisdom. And that is ultimately this mental game here. It's things that we don't always think about that get overlooked because maybe they are so practical or we don't understand those exercises, just like we have to first learn how to squat and not have our knees cave in too much or cave out too much or bend the hips, bend the knees, and put it all together. It's not just what we know, but it's how we then go and use it. So we're going to be using this trick of the warrior's pause. We want to, instead of acting on impulse, take that half second to evaluate before reacting. And I'm going to use an example of Tom Brady here in a second after I get through the tools. But if we want to practice this, if we want to get the reps in, if we want to add this to our bag, to our toolkit, we got to start doing some visualizing. Now, this is thrown around, right? I talk about it every once in a while. It is very important. But before that competition, mentally rehearse those different scenarios. We have different types of this in our programming, but it's so important to do. Sometimes it's just thrown out there and visualize, right? It just says visualize. That's why I'm just giving you a little bit more thought and think about doing it before competition, different scenarios, because that comes to this next tool of situation awareness training. And that goes back to our practice, right? Getting the most out of the practice and intentionally putting ourselves in those situations that we think might happen in this next game, in this next match that we don't usually face. Maybe we're going to be wrestling someone pretty couple weight classes up because they're going to be just as strong as the person we're going to be up against. And we have to get that stamina going to beat them. That's the only way we can. Maybe it's going up against this new type of pitcher, a lefty who has that crazy slider. And we have to be able to hit it, right? It's all these different things that we can try to get in the practice. So then when we are in those tough spots, we don't have to think as much. The thinking is not going to be required because we've already put in those reps behind it. And I said, we're bringing this Tom Brady, right? He was not the strongest or the fastest, right? He started to study that game. He started to get that wisdom over just the instinct. Now it turns into instinct, right? But he built it up. It was not just raw talent. It was that decision making that he built up through studying, through gaining that wisdom. And that's why we put in those reps with those tools, or using that trick of the warrior's pause. Pause and realize where we are at and where we can go by upgrading our decision making. Number 4, Prometheus's gift. We got that fire of resilience. We got to keep it coming, keep it going. And this thing comes around the kind of question that I had of, why do some athletes bounce back from failure and others just totally collapse over it? And it ultimately comes to this tip around Prometheus's gift of resilience is a choice. It's not just a trait. And this is going to come from the Greek myth that Prometheus stole fire from the gods to give it to humanity. It was the gift of power, of survival for humans to have. And this is ultimately the same as resilience, right? It's something we have to cultivate. It's not something we're born with. It's something that we got to work up. Maybe it is a little bit given to us from a coach, a little praise here, a little extra work there from another coach or from another player, right? And the other thing to think about this is that resilience even brings more stuff. Prometheus was then stuck, I forget exactly where it was, if it was under earth, in the dungeons, in the sky. I don't remember off the top of my head right now. But his liver got ate over and over every day, and then it would regenerate, all right? It's the myth, right? Until he was finally freed again from someone else, from them defeating Zeus. But this comes from, it's just showing us that sometimes we're given something so important, how we have to take it and we have to use it and be resilient from it. Or in the other case, we're helping other people, we're helping the team, and we have to be resilient. We have to keep going through that. That's this trick of the fire keeper. And we have to keep that mental fire burning. No matter what, no matter what's happening, the mental fire has to stay burning. We can do this 2 ways, 2 tools for us in the tool bag. Reframe the failure, right? And I'm working on this one a lot too, and everything else in my sports business, anything I'm doing. A loss is not a loss. It's more data. And if we keep going, we learn from it, right? Unless that's it, we have to retire after that loss. We have another time, and we get to take the chance to get better from it. We get small wins to focus on, especially when we're struggling. We focus on just that one smaller victory that we can work towards. And that can be the smallest thing in practice, wherever it is, a routine that we're doing just at home that then ties into everything else, because that's part of the mental game, right? It's all the other extra things that we're doing. And you want to put this on a big scale, the Olympics, tie it to the Greek mythology, is a crazy concept. 4 years of training, right? If you don't make the team, if you get cut, if you then actually make the team and you go to the Olympics and you mess up the routine like in gymnastics, all eyes are on just you, and you try and get a perfect score and you mess up, and now you're done and don't get the points for the team and everything else. Is it over? You did lose, but is it done? Or are you retiring? Are you keeping the fire burning? Are you using Prometheus's gift of that fire being resilient? And lastly, tip number 5, we got Hercules and the Herculean habits. And this just comes from discipline over motivation. Terms thrown out there all the time. Hopefully I can put a little spin on it so it's not just the same thing we always hear about, and add a few other stories to it. Because obviously we know what's more important to long-term success. Motivation, we think it's kind of like that chart, up and down, up and down. We do stuff, we don't do stuff, we do stuff, we don't do stuff. But if we're disciplined, constantly keep doing this stuff. And this comes to Hercules because it ties around our tip 5 of success being built on the habits and not the hype. Yes, Hercules was pretty hyped up, right? He looked a little different than everyone else, but his legendary name and known for was not overnight, okay? It was 12 laborious tasks that he had to go do, that he had to push through sheer discipline, sheer doing it, so then he could go live a life of being free. And that's why we have this 12 labors rule for the trick. 12 micro goals, right? Leading to that big goal. And if you see the newsletter, if you're on the newsletter, this upcoming Sunday, we're going to have a different look at this 12 labors rule in a different perspective, in a different way of using it with some tricks and tools. But for this one, that's our trick. And the tools that we need to set are daily non-negotiables. This is just going to be like 3, 2, right? It's something that's going to move us forward. Maybe we want to set some per day. And then at the end of the week, we have 12. Another thing is gamify the progress, right? It seems like, because it does come back to the basics, like we talked about last week, right? To get in the flow state. But it can be somewhat repetitive, right? It seems like it's like the same game. It's just the same thing over and over, right? That's why I called it ship season when I was talking to a team during the championship time. Because you're on a ship forever. That's why it's called ship season. Being on a ship forever gets pretty boring, gets pretty tiring. You got the same thing over and over, right? But if we can gamify it, we can find the levels to the success, keep climbing up. All of a sudden, it's a little more fun. For instance, Cristiano Ronaldo retiring, but his work ethic, his habits, it's what builds him up. You hear some stories of him, hear him tell about it. Yeah, maybe there is some talent. There obviously is some talent there, but it's the insane habits that he put in, the things he did for his health, for his soccer, for the game, for his overall performance that really made him legendary. That is maybe possibly Hercules of soccer. Up for debate, but I'm sure he went through his 12 labors for his own. All in all, covered 5 key tips, tricks, and tools, using them coming from Greek mythology. Pretty fun one, but really wanted to tie it into the mental performance, and I do want to recap them here as well for us. Number 1 was know thyself, and we had the mirror of Delphi. Self-awareness is that first step to mastery. Number 2 was that Titan mentality. We have the Titan's restraint, and this comes from knowing that strength is nothing if we don't control it. We will get beat out. Number 3 was Athena's edge. And this is that warrior's pause, right? We have to find that wisdom and turn it into the action, because it's not enough to just have that strength like before. Number 4 was Prometheus's gift. We have to keep the fire burning and keep fire. Resilience is something that we cultivate over time, something that we have to keep going. And that ties us to number 5, the Hercules habit, or the Herculean habits. And that's the 12 labor rule. Discipline, not motivation, builds that success. Find some 12 micro goals. Like I said, this week's newsletter, sign up for a link below. We'll have a different way to look at this 12 labors rule. All in all, I hope you found a lot out of this Greek mythology mental performance collab. Once again, I know my Greek mythology needs some studying up on. Probably going to do that tonight, actually. But I hope you took some stuff out of this. And if you want to check out any coaching, any of our other services, check out the links below. Catch you next week on the Athlete's Health Deep Dive. My name is Gabe. Keep leveling up your game.